Hello everybody, welcome again to this live video. Last time it failed. We had some problems with the internet and then it all just cut off. So I'm starting again, and if you're just tuning into this video now, welcome. If you're watching the recording, also welcome. Quick plug, channeling course again starting in 3 weeks. It's going to be an amazing opportunity to learn to channel and developing some powerful healing gifts. And I'm doing these readings, astrology readings and channeling sessions at all times. Always. Maybe not always. But if you like this reading of the collective chart and you want to hear about your personal chart after this, contact me. So I'm posting now in the comment section the actual chart I'm going to be talking about the full moon, but it's actually going to be a little while before I even get into the full moon because there's a lot of other interesting aspects taking place right away. The first thing is tonight Saturn is going direct, and when a planet goes direct after a retrograde cycle, it means the energy starts coming back online. So Saturn is a planet of limitation and constriction. It's what challenges us to step up into life in our best possible way, to really meet karma, to meet time. So in a personal sense, it can be a sense that things are moving forward again in terms of your long-term projects and that you're able to gain some momentum in that sense. In a collective sense, because we have all of these planets in Capricorn, if you're following astrology, we've had many planets in Capricorn in a retrograde cycle of so many planets in Capricorn. It's a total restructuring of societal structures and issues of power and control, authoritarian leaders. So when something has to be cleaned and purified, those things come to the surface in order to come to the light, and then we face them and transform them. And when Saturn goes direct, we may see this control surfacing again, and it may happen with governments and other things in these days. And it could also happen when Pluto goes direct later on. So I don't mean to be a bearer of bad news, but it's just something to be aware of, though in a bigger term sense, Saturn going direct is a good thing because it allows us to take initiative again. So when Saturn goes direct, there are interesting aspects taking place. And let me pull that up again. So right as Saturn goes direct, it's squaring Mars, and it is also in conjunct Venus. So the square between Saturn and Mars is going to be an ongoing thing. And what that does to us is sort of limits our will, our drive. Mars is about taking initiative, getting things done. It's also about our sexual energy and our creative energy. So when Mars is retrograde, coming up against Saturn going direct, it's like an extra punch to our ability to move and do things and feel that creative energy flowing. So Mars has been retrograde since September 9th, and it's going to continue till November 13th. It won't be out of its shadow period until the next year. So what I have done the past couple days is look deep into the past Mars retrograde cycles to get some ideas about what Mars retrograde has brought into my life before. And what I notice is that every time there's a Mars retrograde, there's sort of this big stifling of my energy where everything changes, the way I do things change. And after that, I'm able to move forward and actualize my goals in really intense ways. But the period of Mars retrograde is like this sort of limbo. And I've noticed in the past couple of weeks, it's been very slow for me. It's like some days I just don't feel the drive to do anything at all. And I'm taking advantage of this amazing equinox time, this sort of time in between seasons, which is always a very powerful time to detoxify yourself, to release the energies from the past season and prepare for what's coming. So been doing that more and feeling that that's helping me bring myself back online. But generally Mars retrograde, it slows things down, and I'm noticing a lot of people wanting to take a break creatively or taking a step off social media or just feeling like they can't get their things done, or they don't want to. And we may see this until November 13th, but it's a really important time to just reflect on, it's about doing the things that fill your heart with passion, yeah? That's what all the channel beings say. The Pleiadians always say, follow your passion, follow your highest excitement. That's what Bashar says, follow your highest excitement to the best of your ability with no insistence on a particular outcome. But if you listen to these channeled beings a lot, they'll also say it's about doing what excites you, but doing it the way that excites you too. So sometimes we get so lost in a routine, habitual way of doing things that we have to have that moment that brings us to just do the same thing a different way. And we find that as we reflect in that time off, when we come back to it and slightly adjust how we do it, everything about it is different. So Mars retrograde can be like that. And yeah, it's just interesting, the Saturn going direct right as Mars is retrograde. And what else did I notice about that? Yeah, the in conjunction to Venus. So as Saturn moves direct, it is in conjunct Venus. And in conjunct is a bit different than a square. In conjunct is kind of like an awkwardness. It's like two people who have nothing in common being forced to have a conversation. So it brings up this tension that's kind of pushes unpredictable things to surface. It can feel sometimes like these planets, these people can't hear each other at all, so you have to make sure to listen really closely. And as Saturn goes direct, it is in conjunct Venus. So this time and this direct motion can feel like our ability to love, express, and connect is a bit being stifled again. We've had a lot of funny aspects with Saturn to Venus at different points, and this is another one where it can kind of feel like, ooh, like I'm not sure, this feels a little bit strange. It feels like something is limiting my love, and it's the energy of Leo that Venus is in right now. So Venus wants to express kind of powerfully and just wants to be seen, wants the attention, wants to create for the sake of it in Leo. And something about this Capricorn energy will shut that down. But that's just temporary, that's just passing. Something interesting to note about the direct motion. Right, okay, I'm going to go into the video and comment on it with the... Why isn't it refreshing? I want to comment on the video itself with the chart. And that's going to be the chart of the full moon, which won't be relevant for a few more minutes because I'm going to go deeper into this Mars retrograde thing. So here we go. I can do it now. So where's the chart? Okay. Mars retrogrades. So one thing that's interesting when planets go retrograde is to look back at all of the times it went retrograde before. So especially when it goes retrograde in the same sign that it's retrograde in now. Mars is now in Aries, and Mars in Aries is in its home planet and home sign, and it is all about asserting one's individual needs and their, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is my own creative energy, and I'm directing it in this way. Normally this will be an intensely sensual or passionate, less sensual, more passionate, direct, focused time. But going retrograde, it kind of shuts that energy down and again takes us more inward. But the last time that Mars went retrograde in Aries was 1998. I went back and looked this far to see when was the last time Mars was retrograde in Aries. And it was that long ago. So it was actually August 27th to October 28th, 1988. I don't know if anyone remembers that time. If you do, maybe somehow it'll connect to this time. But also every other time that Mars goes retrograde will in a way connect to this, and you can see the overlying theme. So in 2018, Mars went retrograde from June 27th to August 28th. It went from Aquarius, 9 degrees, to 28 degrees Capricorn. In 2016, Mars went retrograde from April 18th to June 30th. It went from 8 degrees Sagittarius to 23 degrees Scorpio. In 2014, Mars went retrograde from March 2nd to May 20th. It was in 27 degrees Libra. It went back to 9 degrees Libra. So that's going to be a cycle that I want to come back to because it connects with some of the energies now. I'm going to mention that again in a moment. And in 2012, Mars went retrograde from June 24th to April 13th, from 23 degrees Capricorn to, that's not Capricorn, that's Virgo. 23 degrees Virgo to 3 degrees Virgo. It's hard to read my handwriting. So in 2014, we had something in that springtime called a Cardinal Cross. So every cardinal sign was represented in this cross, and a cardinal energy is about taking initiation and moving forward. Cardinal energies initiate things. So it was like a creative initiation of a spiritual awakening. I remember that time as being particularly crazy. I was doing a lot of energy work, and everyone I was connected with in this community was really having some deep stuff come up, and it then kind of propelled us in new directions. So that time is significant to think about, as well as the 1988 thing or whatever, because Mars was in Libra then, and Libra opposes Aries. So whereas Libra is about the sense of other and how we relate to the other, the Aries is about ourself. And the two sides of the coin complement each other when self and other are in perfect union, and we meet our needs and also take into account the needs of the other. So the Mars retrograde in 2014, you probably contemplated a lot of how the energy of the other played out in your life. I remember in that time I was in a relationship that had some challenges come up in that moment. So you may now see a turning of those cycles 6 years later. The question now is about me, myself, and what do I do with my energy? Do I allow myself to fully express? Do I allow the outer limitations to build frustration that then brings me to sort of quelch my own efforts? Or do I sit with that frustration and work with it as a creative energy that helps me to state my boundaries and meet my own needs in healthy ways? With all of this energy squaring Mars, it's going to feel like things are pushing up against us and trying to push us down, that we have to stand up for what's true for us, for what we want to experience and express, and the way we want to do it. Because again, remember, the Mars retrograde is about changing the way we do things. We may still be doing the same things in the same career with the same friends and creative outlets, but there's a subtle adjustment in the energies of how we do it. And it was so interesting for me to look back at all of these Mars retrograde cycles I mentioned, because I see different things coming up. Like in 2018, that was a period of time after I had tried to move to Hawaii, but the volcano erupted literally 3 days after I moved into this new house. And then I was in limbo for the 3 months Mars was in retrograde. I was not sure where I was going. I was having romantic things surface that then led to more disasters. I was contemplating my creative sexual energy and trying to work with it in new ways, but it was really challenging. And it was after that period that my career took new directions and I was able to really manifest successfully. And it kind of made me serious about what I really needed to do. 2016, it was kind of a similar thing. It was more of a spiritual concern at that moment. I was just fed up with certain traditions and ways of doing things that I learned through spiritual teachers, and I was shedding it and stepping into my own self-expression, and also having again, with Mars retrograde, sexual themes come to the surface for transformation. 2014, similar. I was about to start leading ceremonies in group settings publicly, but I had a lot of fear coming up in that Mars retrograde period before that. So what I noticed for myself about Mars retrograde is that this is the point where we recognize something we're doing isn't working anymore, or we have to do it a different way, and it feels like we're in limbo until we can really step into it. And once it starts moving again, which Mars will do on November 13th, can feel like liberation. It feels like we're finally free again. So that's the Mars retrograde. And, honor that you're in limbo, but don't use it as an excuse to not step up to the plate for the things that you really have to do. Because when things feel tense and slow, doing the smallest little bit will actually make the biggest difference and allow us to feel like, even though it's slowing down and we're in the cycle of transformation, there's still momentum. The momentum really helps to just bring our awareness to the sense, yes, there still is momentum. So understand that also Mars retrograde happens only every 2 years and 2 months or something, and it's an irregular retrograde cycle, so it's very significant when it comes up, whereas the other outer planets from Jupiter to Pluto do a retrograde every year. So while that retrograde cycle is still significant, it's less intense and personal. Okay, so that's Mars retrograde for you. And let's look at the full moon itself now. And again, I posted that the chart of the full moon in the comments that you can go and look it up, right? So, the full moon. Here in Guatemala, the ascendant of the full moon is Aquarius. The ascendant will be different in everywhere you look, but I do like an Aquarius ascendant. That's nice. So, we have Chiron paired with the moon. And Chiron is about the wounds that lead us to be an integrated healer, and lead us to be an integrated being. So at the core of Chiron, there is this sort of joy of the inner child that we can tap into and use in beautiful ways, though it requires us to look deep at where we may have been wounded. So at the time of this full moon, you may find wounds from the past surfacing. And in Aries, it relates to wounds about our own sense of individuality and our ability to create the way we want to create. So it's a very amazing time if you want to, do some child work regression or step into creativity. Just, I read a quote the other day from Carl Jung, whatever you got lost in entirely as a child and could key to your integration. So sometimes our childhood wounding is about learning that those things that really light us up and bring us into a flow state, which is a channeling state, are not good. They're not good enough. They're bad. And they're not part of what we really need to be doing to fit into the world. So undoing our wounding means allowing ourselves to be with our natural, spontaneous creativity and playfulness. And that might be a theme for the full moon. In general, any wounds, it doesn't have to be childhood wounds, but looking at what still is unhealed will be something coming up with the moon. So the moon is also squaring all of the Capricorn planets, and that's a thing in and of itself. I feel like I've talked about that in like every video. Capricorn squaring, T square cardinal. We hear this all the time. So let's focus on something else. The sun is conjunct with Makemake. And if you look a little bit further, Mercury is conjunct with Haumea. So this is going a little bit esoteric because these are new planets. They're in the Kuiper belt around Pluto's orbit, so they're far out there, and these things that are on the outskirts of consciousness have to do with our evolution. So these are both fertility goddesses, and Haumea is this female fertility goddess that can birth things from every part of her body, whereas Makemake is the god from Easter Island, that male fertility goddess from this island. So these archetypes are kind of new in our understanding. They haven't really been integrated yet. What we can say about them definitively is that they have to do with fertility and creation. I feel as well they have to do with reawakening what existed before colonizing culture, the deep connection to the earth, the understanding that if you fully connect with the earth, all of this fertile creative energy comes and channels through us. So the moon is getting, and the sun are getting this boost of energy from Makemake that is also enhancing our creativity and enhancing the power of our earth connection, yeah? So, and yeah, I'll talk about the Mercury thing later, but let's go into it now. The cardinal T-square. So what you have in Aries in the chart is Mars, Black Moon, Lilith, and Eris. There's a bit of space between the moon and Chiron, and then these other planets on the outskirts that create the T-square. Initially, there's just an opposition. If you count Pallas Athene, there's 2 T-squares, which is interesting. So Eris is the goddess of discord. Eris is about disrupting things that don't work anymore. So Eris governs rebellions and protests and going out and revolutionizing things. Though Eris also disrupts in negative ways. It can be the saboteur within our relationships that always finds a way to create conflict because we're unconscious of the fact that we're addicted to conflict, and part of our ego gets off on experiencing the conflict, and whether we're right or wrong isn't part of it. It's just we love to have conflict in our lives. It's part of human nature. So Eris can also bring that up. And it's with Black Moon Lilith as well. Mars is with Black Moon Lilith, and this is the archetype of the instinctual, primal, wild feminine. Before we have all of these conditionings and ways we have to fit in, it's the wild woman archetype. And so these 3 planets together are like a powerhouse of untamed energy, and this untamed energy seeks expression. So with all of this energy right now in the full moon, and any time throughout 2020, this is still in place, there's the potential for outbursts of energy and rebellion. And again, it's important to use this energy in healthy ways, to stand up when you're seeing injustice or when you're feeling your boundaries violated, that's not what you want, but doing it without cutting people's heads off or creating tension and discord just for its own sake. Your discord has to be purposeful in order to really integrate. And all of these planets are, again, squaring the Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. And so is the square from Haumea. Haumea makes that a T-square, and that would direct the focus to the center of the square, which is the Capricorn planets. So this full moon is kind of like a pivot point in this whole unfolding story of how we are moving through these intense transformations in, again, the structures of society, the controlling forces in society. And it just popped into my head like this idea I had yesterday or the day before about democracy itself. And I feel like this is a download that says democracy is outdated. One thing that some channeled beings say, namely Bashar, is that we want a political system that upholds the needs of the few, that doesn't make the needs of the many more important than the needs of the few. But the idea with democracy, right, is that the majority rules. But in a world where the majority rules, we can't guarantee that the majority has the best interest of anyone. So I believe in our evolution, we're actually shifting back into a state of pluralism, or I came up with the term neo-tribalism, where we're going back to being more focused to individual tribes, self-governing tribes of people that then fall into the bigger category of the entire world. Because then people choose where they belong, and every one of those different tribes that forms can serve the needs of the few who have specialized needs. Because, just by biology, right, people come into the world who are a smaller percentage of the population that have specialized needs that can't benefit from the way that a majority rules government decides it to be. So I feel like that is part of the change, where everyone has to come to realize their voice is important and their unique and individual needs are important. And that just came up as I was looking at the Capricorn energies again, because it's like that Pluto in Capricorn is a total transformation of all of the structures of society. No more hierarchy, no more patriarchy, no more colonizing attitudes and behaviors and practices in the world. So the moon, not the moon, but Mars and Haumea, even Mercury, aspect that and highlight that as an important theme in this moon. However, there is Neptune sextiling everything in Capricorn, which can mean spiritually in terms of our connection. We can really use that higher mystic energy to better understand this transformation at this time. That's a sweet aspect that kind of soothes it. So looking at Mercury's influence in the full moon, Mercury in Scorpio is conjunct Juno. Juno is about commitment, and it's also there with Haumea. So Mercury in Scorpio is moving towards its stationary direct point, and at the moment of the full moon, it will be in a sextile to Venus. So it'll be a good full moon for communicating within our relationships, our needs. It would be a good moment, really for relationships, because Mercury aligned with Juno really allows our intuition and our mind to get on board with relationships. If you're not fully committed to your relationships, it's a time to look at that and speak about it, especially in Scorpio, which more than anything demands connection, transparency, and depth. So it's a time for deep communication and really going beyond the bullshit, right? So the other thing about Mercury is that it's opposing Uranus. So there will likely be an unexpected, if you don't have anything in your relationships that's causing you to commit more or be more present with it, something unexpected, revolutionary might come up just to do that. So Mercury there brings unexpected revolution and innovation into that realm of relationships. Another thing, if you want to go deep with your astrology to look at, I'm not going to speak about it now, is Neptune squaring the nodal axis, creating another T-square, making Neptune quite important. I mean, the short thing to say about that is like, it brings a more intuitive aspect to our evolutionary process and highlights the significance of that. The square could also mean, making sure not to be in your illusions, because the North Node in Gemini is again about seeing clearly, seeing both sides of things. And the North Node now is in a gene key that is discrimination, purity. The gift of that gene key is discrimination. The city is purity. The shadow is vanity. So the shadow of our evolutionary focus, North Node and Gemini, could be thinking too highly of ourselves, being too inside of our box to not see the bigger picture. Discrimination means to be able to look at everything clearly, see it for what it is, to be able to make the best choice, to raise your standards. Discrimination is also about raising your standards. Who are you connecting with? What information are you connecting with? And does it really suit your evolution? Those are questions to be asking now, especially now, but always. Okay, so I think that really sums it up for the energy of the full moon. It's an intense one, basically. It's an intense one. There's those nice aspects with Mercury and, another nice aspect, to just say one nice thing about the full moon, because parts of it are intense, is Mars trine Venus. So even though Mars is kind of going through this contemplative, powerful, transforming period of retrograde, it connects in a beautiful aspect to Venus, which can soften the energy of that square. So Venus and Leo, coming to the end of Leo, it's like uniting that creative impulse of Mars and Aries with beautifying in this very stylistic, flashy way that is the energy of Leo. So Leo is also about love. It's about the heart. So it's a time to really be honest with yourself. Anything that you do under a full moon is amplified. So if I can sum it up, be honest with yourself, stand for your needs, and stand up for what sort of engagements and commitments you really want to see, and be easy on yourself, because the energy is, like always, intense, but it is especially intense, and the continuation of Mars retrograde matched with Mercury retrograde, which I'll talk about for a bit now, is a strong energy that carries us to the end of the year, because again and again there's Mars squaring Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn. So I wrote down some other interesting dates here. So Mars squares Pluto exactly on Friday, October 9th. That can be a day when power issues come to the surface and we're asked to face our power. So Mercury retrograde begins not long after that on October 14th, and it lasts till November 3rd. And that is election day in the United States. So that is going to be a very strange election, most certainly. Mercury retrograde sort of makes communication and intuition and mental things a bit erratic and unpredictable. And so it's likely going to be a delayed, certainly a delayed counting of the votes. I mean, we don't need astrology to see this, honestly. With the things the president says and does, it's going to be a weird election. And astrology just confirms that. Go research that yourself. It's going to be a weird election. But Mercury retrograde is, for personally, it's a time of added contemplation. So we have this Mars retrograde contemplation. How can I change the way I do things? Mercury retrograde is, how can I change the way I think about things? How can I change the way I perceive things? So it's in Scorpio and Libra. So that initial phase of Mercury retrograde in Scorpio can be, how do I connect more? How do I dive deeper? How do I let my truth come out? And coming back into Libra, it's like, okay, now I'm feeling on all this, I'm seeing all this. How do we make things balanced? How do we make things fair? How do we make things light and open for everybody? And that is likely going to be a very interesting theme in seeking that justice and that balance during Mercury retrograde. Did I write anything else down? So Pluto is direct. This is before any of that Mercury retrograde. I'm going backwards in time. So I said Mars square Pluto on October 9th. That's also a Friday. I don't know why that matters. I wrote it though. Pluto direct on October 5th. So before that square, Pluto's energy comes back online. Pluto's about transformation. So it's the end of a sort of contemplating about our transformation, our power. It's interesting that it comes back direct right before that square. And to me, that just means it's going to be another sort of kick to Mars' butt a little bit. So we may continue to feel again. Now, right now, it's like the limitations, the tasks, the karma, the time can be imposing on our will and our initiation to create, to connect. And later it's power, our lack of power, our powers beyond our reach, having that same impact on our will, our drive, our sexual creative energy. And when we have these squares and this intense energy in astrology, it signals that it's a time for growth. We don't grow without challenge. So while we may say it, matter-of-factly, like it's kind of intense, but that intensity is a good thing because it allows us to transform and do something new with our energy and with our lives. So know that the challenges that you may be facing in these times are something that everyone's going through. We've never had times like this. We're always going to remember these times. And astrology also shows us, from what I see, that 2021 and onwards is going to be a shift in the energy, and we're going to be able to feel lighter. And what we do with the challenges in our inner life and our relationship to the outer reality now is going to shape all of what's to come. So yes, be inward, be contemplative, and work with this energy in your own way. And also know that it's leading you to new creative ways of meeting the future. And in the end of 2020, we have that eclipse, and we have the union of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius after they've moved through their shadow phases. And that's a really beautiful moment where we're aligning with the Aquarian energy and beginning a cycle of Saturn and Jupiter uniting in an air sign every year for every 20 years for 200 years. That's super significant, and it's very beautiful. We've moved from the cycle of earth signs, which is about our creation, materialization, building economies, building technology, and now moving into an air sign, moving into the ways of expanding our consciousness and expanding our connection. And part of that, especially in Aquarius, is equalizing the playing field and caring for everybody, extending love and compassion for the whole. Aquarius is this weird agape love. Leo is that self-inner love, and Aquarius is the agape love, the universal love for all, and being guided by that love so that we can live in a way that is of benefit to everyone and everything. And that energy initiates in us in the end of 2020. All of the challenge leads us to that and leads us to a way that we can meet that energy in a beautiful, new, and brilliant way. Okay, that's all I have to say, but I see there's 8 people who stuck it out. I'm glad that what I've been sharing has been engaging enough for you to stay here with me, and I really appreciate it. I'll answer any questions that you have, and any way that anything that you'd really like to. I see a message here. I'm an Aries sun and moon. I wonder how this plays out with myself too. If you have Aries in your chart, it's going to be a little bit more powerful. It's going to feel like it's a very personal and soul-moving experience with all the Mars retrograde. And depending on where the Aries is, if it's in the later degrees, you're probably also feeling this sort of like tense energy, like maybe even want to just like break things or mess things up, perhaps, or just go wild. And the encouragement would be to find a way to use that wild energy in a healthy way, in a way that you don't actually cause destruction to self or other in any way, but you allow that wildness to kind of break some of your inhibitions and your conditioning so that you can be a more free and happy, excited being. What are the other? Thank you, Alicia Lima. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. 9 comments. I guess there's no other questions. So, plugs again. I'm doing astrology readings. You can take a look at how the stars are affecting you right now, or you can take a look at just your kind of soul blueprint, what the stars say about you and your gifts and talents. And I do connect it with the wisdom, of course, I get from channeling and my other studies. So it's a unique reading, like all readings. Even if you had your chart read before, I'm sure there's something new we can discover. So contact me. And the channeling course is coming back online in 3 weeks. I'm super excited. We have, I think, like 7 or 8 people already in the group. And for 3 months, we meet every week, and there's video lessons when we're not meeting, and assignments and ways for you to develop your intuitive healing gifts and other people that you will be practicing with to really hone those gifts in and experience the transformation they can bring in your life. Everyone who joined the first course really loved it, and it initiated powerful things. Some people are now channeling for others on the regular, launching their own courses, and much more. So yeah, check out my website, dantestarshine.com, for the channeling course if you want to take a peek at that, and you can ask me any questions. I'm here for you. Those are my only plugs. Does anyone have any last questions or comments about the astrology before I sign off? And yes, you're going to be able to watch the replay later whenever you like. Okay, I think that's good. I think we're done. 42 minutes. I love you guys. It's such an honor to share with the world and know that people receive it and gain value from it. So, yes, as I've said earlier, Mars retrograde and all of it is intense on myself as well, but I've come to see through the Mars retrograde periods before that it always brings something huge and powerful in its wake. We're going to see that birthing in 2021. Alrighty, enjoy the full moon and catch you later. Oh, by the way, it's a blue moon this month, meaning on Halloween, we're going to have another full moon in October, and I'm excited for that one because it's the Taurus moon. My moon's in Taurus, my sun's in Scorpio, so I'm really familiar with that axis, and it's also Samhain or Halloween, and whew, I know it's going to be a fun one. All right, thank you guys. I love you. Bye for now.